Hey, greetings everyone from our home to yours. I hope that this finds you safe and well. Happy Sunday. Our scriptures for today come from Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 29. And this is the passage where Jesus teaches about two kinds of builders. There's a wise builder who builds their house upon a strong rock foundation, and a foolish builder who builds their house upon a weak, sandy soil, no foundation of rock. And that when the storms come, it's the wise builder who built their house upon the rock foundation whose house will be there when the storm is over. This statement is the conclusion to the Sermon on the Mount, and how fitting that Jesus would use the two contrasts of the wise and the foolish, the strong rock and the sandy soils to finish up his 20, 30 lessons that he's taught to us so far in the Sermon on the Mount. The whole sermon that Jesus has been preaching so far, he's been saying, you've heard it said, by the religious leaders of the time, but I tell you. And he has contrasted their teaching and his teachings throughout the whole Sermon on the Mount. And just prior to this conclusion of the metaphor of two foundations, Jesus teaches about the two different kinds of Christ followers, the real and the fake, and now we hear about the wise and the foolish. So this passage then is a warning. What Jesus is saying is, he says, now that you've heard the truth, you have to make a choice. You can listen to Jesus's teachings and his words and live your life on the strong foundation of the rock, which is another metaphor, allusion to Christ the rock, the chief cornerstone, or Christ the rock from the Old Testament. Or you can keep listening to the religious leaders of the day and the fake people. So Jesus's way brings stability, and the other way brings calamity and uncertainty. You know that whole sinner's prayer thing where, you come down front and accept Jesus into your life, things that preachers say like that? Well, they're not really biblical. Jesus doesn't say anything like that at all. And then in the New Testament writers don't really say anything like that. Especially that whole accept Jesus into your heart thing. There's nothing like that in the Bible. But the closest thing that I find, there's several places where Jesus tells us that we have to make a choice. New Testament writers tell us that we have to make a choice. And that's what Jesus' conclusion to the Sermon on the Mount is. It is a call to action. It is him calling us down to the front and asking us to make a choice. And the choice isn't whether to accept him into his heart or not, or to say a sinner's prayer. It's merely to decide, how are you going to live? Are you going to live following his teachings and his way of life? Or are you going to follow the wrong teachings of fake people? You have to decide. One way of living leads to peace and stability, and the other one to a weeping and gnashing of teeth. But what I'm trying to say is that we all have to make a decision. And whatever the words are that are behind it, whatever the fancy thing that the preacher says, or whoever it was that's inviting you to follow Jesus, just remember that it's a decision to follow Jesus and his words and to keep on living that way, or to follow the wrong teachings and keep on living that way. One leads to peace, which is what we would call salvation, and the other one leads to calamity and a weeping and gnashing of teeth, which is what we would call hell or damnation. So choose you this day who you will serve. So may you go this week choosing the wise decision, the wise path, the wise builder who builds their house upon the strong foundation, who is Christ, the solid rock, our foundation for life. Follow his ways and his teachings, and you will have peace. Grace and peace to you. God bless you.